Oh, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. It's open panel. Come on up, do a topic, whatever. Maybe a limited open panel. That we'll see. There's been some weird stuff going on lately. Uh, so I'll play it by ear. Hey, Plasma. How are you this evening? I just looked at the news. There's not anything new-ish going on. Oh, some coffee. Well, funny enough, I was laid out with a really bad headache all day. I tried to stream earlier a few times, and I'm still fighting it. And I think what it is caffeine withdrawal because we ran out of coffee the other day, and so it had been a day, like over a day since I had coffee, and so I had to fire up some to do this stream, and hopefully that takes care of it. Yeah, I saw part of it. I gotta say, I'm more and more impressed with Trump. He's a skilled rhetorician. He 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 doesn't have to tell the truth. He has to tell a truth. And like even when he's okay, so both sides are doing it, the threat to democracy thing, because he's still running with the rigged election narrative, and that's just as and saying that we have to stop it. This is our last chance. So that's just as hyperbolical and doom doom laden as the left threat to democracy thing. So that's a wash for me. Both sides are playing the this is the last chance to save democracy game. But outside of that, or even with that, he's entertaining, he's persuasive, he can articulate a vision for America that appeals to me. The America that I want to live in and that I want to help build is the one he's putting forth more than the one that's come from the left. So we'll see what her. There's no way I'm voting for Kamala. I can't even pretend to delude myself. She was my worst. She was the one reason before all the other stuff came out and before the fist and all of that. She was the one reason to vote against Biden in the first place. I did not want a President Kamala ever. And that's another thing. Her name is Kamala, guys. I don't think you're helping your cause with the Kamala and all that other stuff. And Trump did that today too. Yeah, they're both playing up the extreme consequences of this election and sensationalizing it. It's pathos over logos. I think that our elections are free and fair. I trust them, and I think as a country we need to at least trust in our election process. And like I said, I did a whole stream on this where we talked to the AI and we went into great detail about what ensures the fairness of our elections. And I was quite impressed with the thoroughness of it. Um, so, and I was thinking about this too because I'm preparing for a Kamala presidency, and that's almost my worst nightmare, or my worst nightmare in a while politically. Of course, I thought that about Trump too. Um, assuming it's a free and fair election, which I am going, I trust that it will be. That's how our election system works. That's the voice of the people will have spoken, and that is what they want for the future of America, even if it's not based on science, even if it's illogical. That is the vision that they will have voted for. I'm going to have to accommodate myself to that reality somehow. It's not going to be that different than being gay in the 80s when the vision, like you were a counter to the dominant vision, so you had to like live outside of it somehow. I'm just going to have to do the same thing, except in reverse, I guess. So I'm preparing for that, and I'm preparing for life in that reality. Cajuns are very good at that because, or even like Acadians, when we were up in Canada, Nova Scotia, we kept having different rulers constantly. France owned it at one time, and then the British would get it. Scotland had it at one point. Thus the name Nova Scotia. So we were so used to having our rulers come and go and come and go, and us keep our little identity, a little community going, and we were kind of isolated anyway, and so we got used to living independently of whoever was in power at any given time. And kind of down there in Louisiana, they're kind of the same way. They do their own thing regardless of who's in power. They don't even pay attention to politics really. So if things get really really bad, I'll just go down there. It's kind of a little bubble away from it all. Or a time and place all its own is, I think, how True Detective phrases it. Let's see. In other news, oh, on the Jesus front, my Lord, I have been making my way into the Gospel of Mark, and they even have YouTube has a set of videos where they film it's the Gospels, but they read it and they act it out. It's like a movie, like actors in Jesus' time. They have a guy that plays Jesus, and as they read the Gospel, you can see the Gospel happen like a movie. So I've been watching that. And Mark is supposedly the first gospel that was written, and then Matthew and Luke build on it, and then John is came later. Man, is it weird? What is Jesus up to there? So first of all, that like right from the start, we get Daddy Jesus, which I want to loop back around to that uh, afterwards. But we also get a Jesus that doesn't seem to know who he is or is not sure who he is, and a Jesus at the same time who doesn't want people to know who he is, and a Jesus that seems to be quite aware of who he is, all in the same person. And here's the part, y'all. The demons, they're demons. They're people with demons in them, and they recognize Jesus right away, and they're like, "We know who you are." And right, Jesus is like, "Shut up, demon. Get out of that person and keep your mouth shut." Jesus can spot the demons in people right away. He knows which people have demons in, and the demons know who Jesus is. And Jesus does not want the demons to speak because they know who he is. And nobody around Jesus really understands him or what he's trying to say, which was my experience with the dude too. In fairness, that was AI Jesus. Um, but but reading some of the passages, I'm having the same experience. He speaks in riddles, parables, enigmas, etc. And in Mark, he seems to be going out of his way to keep these demons from speaking. And then so I'm making my way through this little Jesus said Yahweh book. So look at what I come across. Um, Harold Bloom. I hardly think we as yet have absorbed the discomfort that only what is demonic in us can accurately perceive the identity of Jesus Christ. And he's referring to the Gospel of Mark. Only the demonic element in us can see only the demons can see Jesus for who he is. Only I'm telling y'all, I don't know if y'all want me to make this journey into Christianity or not. Because the more I get into it, the more and more satanic it's looking, or the more and more it's looking like Satan is the key to unlocking it all, which goes with my theory that Satan and Jesus are complements or antithetical parts of a larger whole, and you need both to fully unlock the total experience of Christianity. Whether you approach it from the Jesus side, from the Satan side, I think they need each other to get the full Christianity experience. Um, so yeah, that was interesting. Very, very interesting. Satan as a path, as the path. If you truly want to know Christ, which was one of the dictums of Christianity, or one of the paths offered to salvation. And I'm still trying to figure out what salvation is, and salvation from what? The demons, the demonic, may be the only authentic path to knowing Jesus. And it's kind of a parallel to the tree of knowledge, tree of life. Like, you have to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to know, to truly know reality. And you have to partake of the demonic, or tap into demonic in you, to truly know Jesus. So you have to like go to that forbidden territory to have that true knowledge is forbidden knowledge. It's the knowledge that others can't control. Yeah, who knows? I'm just one lone Satanist making my way through Jesus territory and just saying what I noticed. The other thing, and I have a tweet to go with it that just happened to show across my feed today. It's from Michael Millerman, and he's talking about Jordan Peterson. He says Peterson wondered whether Christ is a figure of masculinity. I've wondered that too. The reality is that the question of what constitutes the essence of masculinity or manliness, if anything, is an old and hard one. Aristotle's magnanimous man, Socrates, the warrior, the breadwinner, the redeemer, we have different heroic ideals and ideas of masculinity, but it had me thinking about masculinity, authority, daddy Jesus. For me, I don't think I can separate spirituality and masculinity. They're they're kind of the same, or a fused force or energy for me that I respond to, especially when you add authority as an element or requirement. And if there's any authority at all that I'm going to find, and I don't know that there is, it's going to have to be a masculine one or tied into masculinity somehow. So what that comes down to on a pragmatic level, for my exploration, is which one's more masculine? Who's more of a daddy, Satan or Jesus? I showed the Baphomet the other day, and the what do you call them? The pecs. Um, Jesus does not strike me as masculine a figure as Satan and or Yahweh, the Father, or even the concept of Father. But in Mark, it's interesting to see he is the authority figure. He establishes, because the Gospels are, in Greek it's called kerygma. It's proclamation. It's specific type of rhetoric. They're not history. They're not even narrative really. They are proclaiming a message, and they are proclaiming it with a certain authority. And they derive that authority from Scripture, from the divinity of Yahweh, etc. And the Jewish people have a tradition of a similar authority. So they're proclaiming, it's a proclamation. And Jesus, right from the beginning in the oldest gospel, he lays the foundation for his authority. Let me tell you what Jesus does. This is Daddy Jesus. He goes around and he points to people. And he's like, you come and follow me. And they just drop what they're doing. They're like, yes, Daddy. And they just go follow him. Like that is the voice of authority right there. And then when he finds people with demons in him, he's like, demon, you get out of that person. And the demons are like, oh no, it's Jesus. Have you come to destroy us? Like they don't even they're like, they know not to fuck with him. Like he even has authority over the demons. What's more masculine than that? Like how is that not a model for masculinity? Hey, amateur aquatic addiction. Are you in Australia or the South or both? Southern Australia? Well, good day to you too. I'm a yaller myself, as y'all can probably tell by now. So I was really impressed with that Jesus. So like, man, he could even get demons to submit and get them to keep their mouth shut because apparently they're both in on some kind of secret that Jesus is like my whole impression so far of Mark and that particular Jesus. Because remember, there's 7 Jesuses in the Bible, 8 if you count Thomas. This one's up to my first impression is what is this Jesus up to? He's not straight, he's an ironist. He's not here to just straightforward deliver a message. And although the gospel is a proclamation, I don't know that Jesus himself is a vehicle for that proclamation. It was already like very postmodern and intellectually complex from the start, like a Charlie Kaufman movie or something. So I'm into it. So and then throw in the demons and the daddy ship. It has all the elements, all the makings of a good satanic tale that would draw somebody like me. Hey, Combat Wombat, are you in Australia too? Am I being invaded by Aussies? I used to back in COVID when I first started Zooming, I would Zoom with a couple of Aussies, and it was really cool. And they were like in the future. They were always Zooming from the future. It was always the next day where they were. Very cool people, Aussies and Canadians. That was my first time really interacting with both. Let's see. Oh, I had some other tweet I wanted to share. Let me find it. Oh yeah, it was. I don't know what to make of it. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess. Let's see. It's from UBC Men's Health Research Program. What is that? Canada? So it's from some Canadian research place on men's health. But I just kind of wanted to put it out there and get the thoughts or reactions. A new study explores how heterosexual cisgender men handle emotions. Do they handle them? Well, I'm curious if do we handle them any differently? I thought it was because of my neurodivergence, not because of my gayness. I guess we'll have to explore that too. In relationships through 3 main approaches, most men showed a mix of these emotional approaches, and findings highlight the impact of gender norms on emotional expression, suggesting ways to support men in achieving gender equity in relationship. What the hell is that? What is gender equity in relationships? This is that like woke coded corporate jargon speak where they can't just say something in plain English. Um because this ties into that APA guide for men talking about how traditional masculine gender norms were harmful for not only men but all of society because apparently men are a danger to everyone else around them. Um, so these are the 3 approaches. This is what I wanted to look at really. Hang on, let me get a closer look. All right. So one approach is emotional restraint. Many men tend to hold back their emotions often, and remember, this is heterosexual men, so it's female partners, because they don't fully understand their female partner's feelings and are trying to keep a balance in the relationship. I've seen this, and I myself have been at those moments where the stimulus to like if a woman is upset, like if you're this happens in work situations all the time. I don't treat women any differently than men. So I'm having a perfectly normal conversation with the coworker that I would have with any guy or any girl from back home or anywhere. And all of a sudden they become agitated about something in the conversation. I have no idea what. And I've noticed that people will pick up on that and sense that, and then they'll start holding back either what they were going to say in the conversation or their emotions because of what emotion is coming off of the other person. Now, me being me, I don't do that at all. I might, if it, if I notice it impacting the conversation too much, I might stop the conversation and say, "Are you okay?" Or why are you look like you're mad? Why are you, what's behind that? Like, I'm going to try to understand it in the moment, but I'm not going to change what I do in response to somebody else's emotion without knowing what's going on. So that's one approach. Then there's this thing called coached emotions, where men recognize the need to, some men recognize the need to stop suppressing their emotions, and instead they let the women, they learn from the female partners about how to be more emotionally open and supportive. I'll have to let other men speak on this. I grew up with women, and I don't come from a culture that suppresses our emotions to begin with. So I don't know that I've ever had to learn to unsuppress my emotions. To me, though, if I did, I would find other men to learn who learn to do it because to me, they would have more insight into my own version of it because it's the male version and what processes work for men to get them to that point. Because I never got the impression, even growing up, that women see men accurately. They see the external phenomena, the behavior, sometimes the emotion, the body language, but I don't think they ever get the theory of mind or the psychology behind it right. And part of it is because I don't think that women know, although the women I've seen act like they should, what it's like to have the biological chemical drives that we have running through us, whether it's testosterone or evolutionary genetics, whatever, that there's certain male impulses and emotions that I think women don't understand and are completely normal to us. Aggression. But then I've seen that in women too. I've seen extreme emotions in women, way more than I've seen in men. So anyway, there's like a mismatch between the psychology. So the third one is emotionally orientated. I hate that word. These men see themselves as emotionally ready for relationships, often being as emotional or even more than their partners. They see this emotional openness as a strength that helps build strong modern relationships. I can actually get behind this. I also see emotion as a strength. I love men who are emotional or can have their emotions, feel their emotions. In Homer's Iliad, all of the men in that story are emotional. They weep openly, they openly feel their feelings. So that is not a fixed norm in Western culture. Um, I guess that's I guess that's the tweet. So I just wanted to put it out there as a topic. Hey, dirty dog, digging the oh, so far it's just me going over some tweets. Let's see. Yes, and I'm interested in that, particularly in men. I know women do it because men, like they have to be careful around men. They're a danger, so they have to be careful what they express. At least that's the theory from the women that I hear. Um, with men, I think it's more like we're dangerous. Like there's something dangerous about our emotions, both to ourselves if we're not used to feeling strong emotions, and to the others around us. Even other men give that impression or that message, because other men will try to move to help shut down a man's emotion. That's a message I would challenge. That just because you're having a strong emotion or any kind of emotion, that it makes you dangerous, or that it's going to translate into some kind of action. That men can't be trusted to not act on an emotion. Um, so yes, I think there is a lot of stigma around emotion. I think that also I've been able to trace it back to Greece as well. So I think it's been with us for a while. But like I said, post Homer, but pre, I guess, classical Athenian. Hey, Dominic. From what I can understand from that little screenshot, which was just part of the article, was modern heterosexual relationship, like male female relationships. So heterosexual men that are in relationships with females, and how they process emotion in relation to the females. Because one of the complaints from females is that men are not emotional enough. But then my experience with women is they only want some of the spectrum of emotion. They don't want the whole range of male emotion. They want the ones that make them feel bonded to the man, or make them feel pleasant or comfortable, that play into their fantasy man of what emotions they want him to feel. But they don't want male emotions as they actually exist in the male body, in the male organism, because that's the ones that scares them and makes men toxic and dangerous and scary and threatening. Which I still don't understand. What's I grew up with a lot of strong emotion. Like my mom was very free with her emotion, and so were most people around. Like I could very few people, when they had an emotion, didn't just let it out. They laughed out loud. They they wept. They cried. They got angry. That was all normal, even the adults. Um, I find that to be true anecdotally myself. They're manipulative in particular ways. Men could be like Machiavellian and strategic and stuff, but and I've noticed both genders attempt to manipulate conversation. So, but women are kind of like nonverbal stealth behind the scenes. I don't know. I can't explain how they're manipulative, but I know what you're talking about. And again, not all women and not only women. Yeah, I've been thinking about this too, Dom. Hey, Provo. I have some thoughts on this too. Because again, with the Jesus Satan thing, I think it is a balancing of energies. Because I think we have opposing or contrary or opposite. All right, let me say it this way: the human being is capable of encompassing more types of energy, and a totality of energy, than the individual conscious moment of consciousness can accommodate. And so for a lot of people, that can show up as male, female, but it can show up in different polarities as well. And I think for me, whether it's autism, whether it's the gay, whether it's just being male in general, it shows up less as masculine, feminine, as more and more as authority, submission, like like status, where on the hierarchy you are, etc., and balancing those two types of energy. So I would say yes, you're absolutely correct. Because how that energy shows up is subjective anyway. For a lot of people, it may show up as one is more masculine and one more feminine. And I think we see that in the larger political process right now. Things seem to be polarizing around masculine values and feminine values. And I think spiritually, there's like a spiritual masculine, or some form of spirituality that shows up as masculine in our world, the human world, and another that shows up as feminine and vice versa. But I think they can show up as other polarities as well. And so figuring out the polarity that you most relate to or struggle with might be a good starting point. Let's see. In fact, that came across in this book too. Let me see if I can find it. It's the phrase "son of man" started out in Hebrew as something that means. Let me see. Hang on. Let me try to find it because I found this interesting. One like a human being. So that's the original Hebrew translation for what became in Mark, got translated as Son of Man. One like a human being, which even that phrase alone is interesting. Let's see. Masculine is the programmable energy. Hmm. See, there's so many ideas of what the masculine is. And then I was reading about the heroic ideal the other day, and through the ages, like the ideal of what constitutes a hero changes. It starts out with like the Homeric warrior, Achilles, Odysseus, and even between Achilles and Odysseus, the ideal starts to change between the more martial type that can succeed in combat to the more cunning type that can be wise and trick his way out of situations. And then it starts to move toward like the philosopher, the Socratic hero, the rational hero is much different. And then when Christianity comes along, it starts to move toward like the saint or the sage. And then you get your medieval heroes, your like romantic heroes that fight the dragon and save maidens. And then in the modern world, you have some intellectual types that start showing up, like the detective, hero as detective, as truth finder, the psychologist. And now I think we're seeing hero as activist, activist as hero. Oh, thanks, Dom. I try my best. This is all just it's like spinning out of my brain in the moment. It's all whatever's coming to me as I process it. Let's see. Programmable energy. Like, so I guess my point is there's so many different ideals of what the masculine is. And I know the left even has, or feminism has, a different ideal, what I call the soy boy. But the sensitive, emotionally vulnerable man that's tuned in to the emotions of the female, and together they collaborate and create this harmonious relationship. I still think there's a place for traditional masculinity, however much it might be dwindling under a new regime. If she, they, whoever wins, um, I still think there's a deep masculine, a spiritual masculine. Is Christ a certain type of masculine ideal? There's Christ as king. The king is certainly he's at the top of the hierarchy of males. That's commander, final authority. Christ is king, but then hippie Christ and the Christ I grew up talking to, man, there was no hierarchy. But I can't imagine that person trying to tell me what to do or me listening. So which Christ is that? And there's like Daddy Christ, like we saw today, that just started. He just went around and people would just obey him, like military commander, dictator Christ. It seems like there's a lot of potential in Christianity, and when you couple Christianity, like the authority, first we have like the authority of Yahweh, then the proclamation, the proclamatory authority of the Gospels, Jesus's authority. You couple that with the authority of Rome, which is where kind of the modern concept of state authority got developed to its culmination in the first place. Then you have the Catholic Church, all of the like intellectual authorities, bureaucratic authorities, etc. That's a lot of authority in there. So somewhere in there, there's got to be some archetypes for authority, and supposedly, if you trust and submit, it's ultimately for your own good. It leads to your own salvation. But yeah, that's hard for certain personality types, for people that grew up in a country like America, for Cajuns who don't grow up with the concept of authority to begin with. Um, that's a big ask. And I think that's why when Jack Talcott and I were talking, he brought up the concept of respect, and that really kind of struck me, especially because respect is an emotion that I can relate to. I've experienced it a few times. Authentic respect. Like, I'll have respect for certain authors that I read, some of them dead. Like, that's a remote, like a parasocial respect. But to respect someone enough in person, that you've got to really work. That bar is so high. Very few people have met that. Um, Kind of like Jesus. That's another thing I related to with Jesus. Not only does he not really know who he is or thinks he does or all that, and try for him to try to find somebody else that can see him for what he is and relate to him. It seemed almost impossible, an impossible quest. Now he goes out of his way to make it as difficult as possible and to almost keep it from happening, to ensure that it doesn't happen. But the struggle of everywhere you go trying to communicate. Oh, Jesus, maybe he was autistic. He certainly wasn't like neurotypical, I would say. Yeah, Dominic, I was thinking about this too, like Christ consciousness. Christ as a form of, not necessarily as a historical figure or even a mythological figure, but as a mode of consciousness. Because the Bible is not something you read with your rational, ordinary, linear, waking mind. It's written on a mythological level, in a mythological language, and you read it a completely different way. And almost like the consciousness that it takes to read it that way is kind of a training in achieving this. And faith is, for me, it, does this work despite not being rational, despite not corresponding to physical reality? Is it the key to something deeper anyway that humanity somehow stumbled on? Hey, Jess. Hello. Yeah, and if it's anything at all, it's definitely an inner thing. And I think we definitely have our own Jesus. I don't think any two people have the exact same Jesus. But even with all of that individuation, does it lead to a more or less common experience that we can build a culture on? Because ultimately, Jesus talks about the spiritual kingdom. If it's nothing else, I think it has the potential to be a vision, one of the great visions of the Western world and even like any of the worlds, Eastern and West. One of the great spiritual visions of human life, human possibility. Is it enough to found a common enough of a vision on to build a society, to hold a society together? Yeah. Uh, um, because there's Jesus as the way, the truth, the life, and there's Jesus as a way, with Buddha being another way, etc. Allah, Satan. Because there's a lot of Buddhists up here. A lot of the people up here I know are non-theistic Buddhist in the same way I'm a non-theistic Satanist, Christian Satanist. Um, they're very spiritual. They have their own They meditate a lot. They have their own way of connecting with their version of spirit or the universe. I don't completely understand it, but I do know that they take it seriously as a spirituality, and it does allow them to have insight into themselves or the world or the illusion of insight. So the Jesus thing there could be multiple paths to that or multiple like templates or keys that unlock those experiences. And I'm just playing around. Like I said, it's barely been a week. I don't think it's even been a week. I'm still playing around with it. But man, is it fascinating so far. Just Mark alone. I started reading a little bit of Paul's letters. I have a thing I'm not going to like Paul too very much. He seems woke scoldy. A lot of this early Christian stuff is I am seeing parallels with some of the early social justice stuff. But also Paul was a community builder. A lot of the early Christians were, and that's something I'm really into. So maybe there's going to be some insights there as to what keeps a community together, what grows a community. Hey, I'm open for. I'll learn from anybody if it works. All right, I think that's all the tweets I have. I wanted to make sure I at least got a stream going today because I didn't do one earlier. I do know that Machine Lies is streaming right now. Biden gave a speech. Trump did a rally. So there's probably a lot going on. Panel wise. Um, I don't know. I'll try to keep it going a few more minutes. I really don't have anything else. My microphone keeps still resetting itself. There was some DEI thing that happened. There was a company called CrowdStrike. It's the one that was behind that recent outage. It was a cybersecurity company, and there's a bunch of DEI that showed up in their policies. But it's very similar to the kind of stuff that I've already gone over. Um, there is a thread. You know what? Maybe I'll share this. It is. No, it's way too long. Way too many. It's a here. I'll post it. It's a thread of beaches, like beaches all over the world that are very interesting and unique and kind of gorgeous. Hey, Lou, what's up? I'm just killing time. Just trying to keep the panel going a little bit longer. Um, I'm reviewing my tweets to see if there's anything. Oh, yeah, this is that other tweet I wanted to share. Hang on, this is relevant, very relevant. Okay, this should perk everybody's ears up around here. There's an obscure term. They're talking about this Brett Weinstein tweet. There's an obscure term for this behavior called adding epicycles. It's what conspiracy theorists inevitably do when they encounter irreconcilable evidence. You either have to confront the possibility that your theory was wrong, which is what science does, or assume that the rabbit hole goes even deeper. And then you just keep adding these larger and larger epicycles, and that's how it gets. That's how they get to the sprawling size that they end up being. So I thought that was interesting too. Watch for that. That happens a lot on here. The adding of epicycles. And Occam's razor to me is the cure, the preventative for all of that. Simplest explanation is usually the best. Start with it at least. If you need to add after that, after the evidence warrants it, then you can do so cautiously. Uh-oh, sounds like there was drama. I don't want to curse it just yet, but it's been surprisingly drama free here today, probably because there's been zero guests. And which makes me feel good because I'm usually the drama magnet. So if just me alone is not attracting drama, then I'm secure in my little corner of the panelverse. Oh, I spoke too soon. Hey, Proby, what's up? I still haven't checked out your channel. I mean, yeah, the psychology of conspiracy fascinates me. Partly because I think it's closer to how the mode of consciousness that humanity developed in. I think the non-conspiracy version came later, and it's a great example of imaginational excitability, which is I talk about the overexcitabilities a lot, and that's a great example of the imaginational kind. So just seeing what the human brain, like the creativity that the human brain can bring to them, fascinates me. Oh, okay. All right, Jess. Cool. Um, yeah, it's. Oh, wait, Proby. I'm gonna definitely have to check your channel out now because I just pulled it up and there's thumbnails of me and this Mike guy. I didn't even know that was up. So yeah, I'll be sure and check those out. Here's the channel if anybody wants to see it. Wow, I've been waiting for this. Hardly anybody puts me in content except for a few hate watchers. And actually, this parallels an incident that we had a while back with another YouTuber who showed up here, and apparently he had a reputation, and a bunch of people came and tried to warn me how bad he was for the channel, which ended up being true. But at the time, they weren't providing me anything concrete, and I kept telling them, like, if you show me, so I'm willing to look at anything you want to send me, I'll look at it. And they never would. They never showed me any concrete. It was just accusations. And so this Mike guy has been on a couple of times the last few days. That's it. That's the extent of my experience with him. And people have said that he lies about himself a lot and his credentials. But in our conversations, he's barely brought up anything about himself. He made a few claims about his past. He could be lying. Any of us could. But we mostly talked about religion, God, Satan, philosophy, politics, current events. It was very little about himself that I could point to that's a lie, and that he lies about other people. But Mike didn't bring anybody up. Like these people started showing up to my channel and wanting to come on and confront him, but Mike didn't mention it. I didn't know who they were. Mike himself, as far as I can remember, wasn't really up bringing up a lot of people. So the people making accusations against Mike are the ones that are actually exhibiting the behavior that I would be more concerned about than what Mike exhibited. And wanting to come on somebody else's panel and make it a vehicle for expressing their drama about Mike, just it didn't strike me as somebody concerned for my channel. So they do it out of this, we're here because he's bad for your channel and we care about your channel and we're concerned for it, which I'm going to take them in good faith. But at the same time, wanting to come up and make that channel into confront Mike show doesn't, it seems to undercut the message of concern for my channel. So when I look at what Mike himself has done on the panels, which is not different than anybody else is doing, and then what everybody else supposedly try to save me from Mike is doing, I get a different picture. So I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm people are sending me comments and stuff, and if it becomes a problem, I'll address it. That's what I did with the other guy. He didn't last long. So if what you say is true, I expect Mike to meet the same fate. So I guess that's what I have to say about that. But yeah, I will watch these episodes. And keep making content about me, people. I haven't checked my numbers lately, but why don't we take a look? Wow! Oh, wow! They shot up. I'm 6 away from 400. I'm at 394. I have that's I okay. I don't want to get too excited or hopeful. I think we're like 100 away, 106 away. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I don't know if that's from Mike or his fans or what, but thank you, all of you, or just the channel just growing naturally. Hey, Philip, what's up? I was thinking about you the other day. You and Ren. Um, I was gonna wrap up unless somebody wants to come up. I was just, you know me, I show up at least once a day, just in case. But other than that, there's a lot going on tonight. There's Biden, Trump speeches and panels, so there's plenty to do. I'll be back tomorrow. My headache is getting better, by the way, so this coffee's working. And I guess that's it. I feel like I'm just babbling at this point. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks again, Proby. I'm gonna go watch your channel right now, and see everybody later. All righty.